Before we begin, I need to tell you something about this play. Something that most people who have never read it do not know. Hamlet, by William Shakespeare, is not a play about revenge. It is not a story about a son avenging his father. Not primarily. It is something far more personal, far more uncomfortable, far more honest about the human condition than any revenge story has ever been. It is a play about thinking too much, about the person who sees too clearly, who understands too well, who cannot stop examining every thought before it becomes action, every feeling before it becomes deed, every justification before it becomes decision, and who therefore cannot act. Hamlet is the first truly modern character in the history of literature. Not because he is young, not because he is intelligent, not because he is tormented, but because he is exactly the kind of person that the modern world creates. The person who has been educated into the recognition that nothing is simple, that every action has consequences, that every justification is also a rationalization, that every value is also a perspective, that the certainty required to act decisively may be the certainty of the fool, and who is therefore paralyzed, not from cowardice, from intelligence. This is Hamlet. William Shakespeare wrote this play around 1600 in London for the Globe Theatre. He was 36. His son Hamlet, named with a variant of the same name, had died 4 years earlier, at 11. Some scholars believe the play is an act of mourning, a father grieving his son by writing a son grieving his father. Whether this is true or not, it feels true, because Hamlet, the play, has the quality of something written from inside the deepest human grief, the grief of loss, the grief of betrayal, the grief of discovering that the world is not what you believed, that the people you trusted were not what you thought, that the love you relied on was built on something false, and finding yourself in the middle of all this discovery with a task you cannot quite bring yourself to perform. This is Hamlet, the most performed play in the history of the world. Still, 400 years later, still, because every generation produces people who recognize themselves in this prince who thinks too much, who cannot act, who knows what must be done and cannot do it, until it is too late for everyone, including himself. This is Hamlet, by William Shakespeare, Part 1, Acts 1 through 3. Let us begin. Shakespeare writes, "Who's there?" 2 words. The entire play begins with 2 words. Not a declaration, not a speech, not the setting of the scene. A question. Who's there? Asked in darkness, on the battlements of Elsinore Castle in Denmark, in the coldest hour before dawn, by a frightened guard, to someone he cannot see. Who's there? And the answer is everything. He continues, "Nay, answer me. Stand and unfold yourself. Unfold yourself." The most Shakespearean instruction in the most Shakespearean opening. Not show yourself, not identify yourself. Unfold yourself, as if identity is something folded, hidden, compressed into itself that must be opened out before it can be seen. And in a play about identity, about who Hamlet actually is, and whether he is mad or pretending to be mad, or has driven himself mad with pretending, the instruction to unfold yourself is the first word of everything. He continues, "Long live the king. It is Bernardo. You come most carefully upon your hour. 'Tis now struck 12. Get thee to bed, Francisco, For this relief much thanks. 'Tis bitter cold, and I am sick at heart. I am sick at heart. The third line of the play. Before we have met Hamlet, before the ghost has appeared, before anything has happened, a guard on a cold night says, I am sick at heart, and we do not know why yet, but the sickness is already there, in Denmark, in the cold. Before the ghost arrives, something is already wrong. He continues, what has this thing appeared again tonight? I have seen nothing. Horatio says, 'tis but our fantasy, and will not let belief take hold of him, touching this dreaded sight, twice seen of us. Therefore I have entreated him along, with us to watch the minutes of this night, that if again this apparition come, he may approve our eyes, and speak to it. The ghost that has been seen twice, and will be seen again. The ghost of Hamlet's father, the dead king of Denmark, who appears on the battlements at midnight in full armor. He continues, peace, break thee off, look where it comes again, in the same figure like the king that's dead. You art a scholar, speak to it, Horatio. Looks it not like the king? Mark it, Horatio, most like. It harrows me with fear and wonder. It harrows me with fear and wonder. The ghost appears, fully armed, silent, moving through the dark, and Horatio, the scholar, the man of reason, who refused to believe until he saw, is harrowed by fear and wonder, both at once. He continues, speak to it, Horatio. What art you that usurp saint this time of night, together with that fair and warlike form, in which the majesty of buried Denmark did sometimes march? By heaven, I charge thee speak. It is offended. See it stalks away. Stay, speak. Speak, I charge thee speak. Speak, but the ghost does not speak. Not to these men. It stalks away into the darkness from which it came, and leaves behind the question, who is it? Why is it here? What does it want? Why now? And Horatio, who would not believe, who came to disprove, now says, this bodes some strange eruption to our state. Some strange eruption to our state. Something is coming. Something is already here. Something has broken through from the other side, and it is wearing the face of the dead king, and it will not speak until it finds the person it has come to speak to, his son, Hamlet. Shakespeare writes, though yet of Hamlet our dear brother's death the memory be green, and that it us be fitted to bear our hearts in grief, and our whole kingdom to be contracted in one brow of woe, yet so far hath discretion fought with nature, that we with wisest sorrow think on him, together with remembrance of ourselves. Claudius, the new king, the dead king's brother, who has married the dead king's wife within 2 months of his brother's death, who now stands in the throne room of Denmark and speaks with the smoothness of the politician, the practiced ease of the person who has thought about exactly what to say and how to say it for maximum effect and minimum resistance. He begins by mentioning grief, by acknowledging it, by giving it its proper weight, and then immediately setting it aside for the practical business of governing. He continues, therefore our sometime sister, now our queen, the imperial jointress to this warlike state, have we as 'twere with a defeated joy, with an auspicious and a dropping eye, with mirth in funeral and with dirge in marriage, in equal scale weighing delight and dole, taken to wife. With mirth in funeral and with dirge in marriage, the most honest thing Claudius says in the play, a wedding and a funeral held at the same time, joy and grief, intermingled, inseparable, both real, neither fully honored, and in this mingling, something dishonest, something that will not resolve, that will keep returning as the ghost keeps returning at midnight to demand what was not honored. He continues, "But now my cousin Hamlet and my son, a little more than kin and less than kind," the first words of Hamlet, spoken aside, not to Claudius, to the audience, to himself. A little more than kin and less than kind. The wordplay, immediate, precise, lethal. Kin, related by family. Kind, related in nature. More than kin, Claudius is now his stepfather as well as his uncle. Less than kind, less than naturally related, less than genuinely connected, less than what the family title suggests, and the pun on kind as kindness, as benevolence, as genuine goodwill. A little more than kin and less than kind. In 10 words, Hamlet has told us everything. He continues, "How is it that the clouds still hang on you? Not so, my lord, I am too much in the sun. Good Hamlet, cast thy nighted color off, and let thine eye look like a friend on Denmark. Do not forever with thy veiled lids seek for thy noble father in the dust. You know, saint, 'tis common. All that lives must die, passing through nature to eternity. Aye, madam, it is common. If it be, why seems it so particular with thee? Seems, madam? Nay, it is. I know not seems. I know not seems. The declaration of everything Hamlet is, everything he will be, everything the play is about. I know not seems. Hamlet rejects appearance, refuses the world of performance, of the managed impression, of the diplomatic smile that does not reach the eyes. His mother asks, "Why does it seem so particular to you?" And Hamlet says, "I know not seems. I do not operate in the realm of seeming. I operate in the realm of being." He continues, "'Tis not alone my inky cloak, good mother, nor customary suits of solemn black, nor windy suspiration of forced breath, no, nor the fruitful river in the eye, nor the dejected haviour of the visage, together with all forms, moods, shapes of grief that can denote me truly. These indeed seem, for they are actions that a man might play. But I have that within which passes show, these but the trappings and the suits of woe. I have that within which passes show, the most important line of scene 2. Everything outward, the black clothes, the tears, the sighs, the dejected face, are actions that a man might play, performances, appearances. But what is inside Hamlet, passes show, cannot be expressed, cannot be adequately represented by any outward performance, however sincere. This is the fundamental problem of Hamlet's character. The inside exceeds the outside, always by too much, and he cannot find the action that adequately expresses what he feels and knows inside. And so he is paralyzed between the excess of interior and the inadequacy of exterior, between what he knows and what he can do. He continues after Claudius and Gertrude leave. Oh, that this too solid flesh would melt, thaw, and resolve itself into a dew, or that the everlasting had not fixed his cannon 'gainst self-slaughter. O God, how weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. How weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable. The first soliloquy, Hamlet alone, with himself, with us. Saying what he cannot say in company. He wants to die, not dramatically, not through action, but to simply dissolve, melt, resolve into do, the most passive fantasy of death, not to be killed, not to kill himself, but to cease to be solid, to become nothing, and only the religious prohibition prevents him. God has fixed his law against self-slaughter, and so Hamlet remains, solid, weary, stale, flat, unprofitable, in a world that seems exactly those things. He continues, "How weary, stale, flat, and unprofitable seem to me all the uses of this world. Fiant, ah fie, 'tis an unweeded garden that grows to seed. Things rank and gross in nature possess it merely, that it should come to this. But 2 months dead, nay, not so much, not 2, so excellent a king that was to this, Claudius, as Hyperion to a satyr, so loving to my mother that he might not beteem the winds of heaven visit her face too roughly. Must I remember why she would hang on him, as if increase of appetite had grown by what it fed on, and yet within a month let me not think on it. Frailty, thy name is woman. Frailty, thy name is woman. The most controversial line in the first soliloquy. Not a judgment on all women, a specific wound, specific to Hamlet, specific to this moment, specific to his mother, who remarried within a month of his father's death. He continues, "O most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. It is not, nor it cannot come to good. But break my heart, for I must hold my tongue. But break my heart, for I must hold my tongue." The inability to speak, the constraint of silence, the knowledge that even the outpouring of the soliloquy cannot be expressed outwardly, must be held behind the tongue, in the wearied, stale, flat, unprofitable body that would dissolve to do if it could. This is Hamlet in Scene 2, before he has seen the ghost, before he knows anything of murder. Already he is exhausted. Already he is constrained. Already he is holding the tongue that has so much to say. Shakespeare writes, "My necessaries are embarked. Farewell, and sister, as the winds give benefit and convoy as assistant, do not sleep, but let me hear from you. Do you doubt that? For Hamlet, and the trifling of his favor, hold it a fashion and a toy in blood, a violet in the youth of primy nature, forward not permanent, sweet not lasting, the perfume and suppliance of a minute, no more." Laertes leaving for France, advising his sister Ophelia about Hamlet, who loves her, or seems to love her, or says he loves her. But Laertes says, "Do not trust it. It is a fashion, a toy in blood, a violet, sweet but not lasting, the perfume of a minute." He continues, "Then weigh what loss your honor may sustain, if with too credent ear you list his songs, or lose your heart, or your chaste treasure open to his unmastered importunity. Fear it, Ophelia, fear it, my dear sister, and keep you in the rear of your affection, out of the shot and danger of desire. The chariest maid is prodigal enough, if she unmask her beauty to the moon. Virtue itself scapes not calumnious strokes. The canker galls the infants of the spring, too oft before their buttons be disclosed. And in the morn and liquid dew of youth, contagious blasphements are most imminent. Be wary then. Best safety lies in fear. Youth to itself rebels, though none else mere. Best safety lies in fear, the advice of the older brother, who loves his sister and fears for her, in a world that does not protect young women who trust the words of princes. And Ophelia receives the advice with grace, but does not simply accept it. She says, "I shall the effect of this good lesson keep as watchman to my heart. But good my brother, Do not as some ungracious pastors do, show me the steep and thorny way to heaven, whilst like a puffed and reckless libertine, himself the primrose path of dalliance treads, and recks not his own rede, does not follow his own advice. Ophelia, who is often played as passive, as the tragic victim, the woman destroyed by the men around her, who is actually, in this scene, sharp, perceptive, politically aware. She sees her brother's advice, and sees also the double standard, the man who counsels chastity, while himself walking the primrose path. She will remember this when the time comes. And then Polonius enters, and the instruction continues. He says to Laertes, "These few precepts in thine memory, look you character. Give thy thoughts no tongue, nor any unproportioned thought his act. Be you familiar, but by no means vulgar. Those friends you hast, and their adoption tried, grapple them unto thy soul with hoops of steel, but do not dull thy palm with entertainment of each new-hatched, unfledged comrade. Beware of entrance to a quarrel, but being in, bear it that the opposed may beware of thee. Give every man thine ear, but few thy voice. Take each man's censure, but reserve thy judgment. Costly thy habit as thy purse can buy, but not expressed in fancy, rich, not gaudy, for the apparel oft proclaims the man. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, for loan oft loses both itself and friend, and borrowing dulls the edge of husbandry. This above all, to thine own self be true, and it must follow, as the night the day, you canst not then be false to any man. To thine own self be true, the most famous advice in a play full of famous speeches, and it is given by Polonius, the old counselor, who will prove himself a fool, a meddler, an old man who thinks himself wise and makes every wrong choice. And yet he says, "To thine own self be true," which is the one thing that his world makes impossible, that Claudius makes impossible, that the court of Elsinore, with its performances and masks and diplomatic smiles, makes impossible. To thine own self be true, in the world of this play, the most radical instruction and the most dangerous, because the person who is true to themselves in this world will be destroyed by it. Shakespeare writes, "The air bites shrewdly. It is very cold. It is a nipping and an eager air." The battlements, at midnight, Hamlet with Horatio and Marcellus, waiting for the ghost. And then the ghost appears. Hamlet says, "Angels and ministers of grace defend us. Be you a spirit of health or goblin damned. Bring with thee airs from heaven or blasts from hell. Be thy intents wicked or charitable, you come saint in such a questionable shape that I will speak to thee. I'll call thee Hamlet, king, father, royal Dane. Oh, answer me, let me not burst in ignorance, but tell me why thy canonized bones, hearsed in death, have burst their cerements. Why the sepulchre, wherein we saw thee quietly inurned, hath oped his ponderous and marble jaws to cast thee up again. To cast thee up again, the ghost that should be at rest, that is not at rest, that has been cast back up into the world of the living, to deliver what it could not deliver in life. The truth. He continues, "I am thy father's spirit, doomed for a certain term to walk the night, and for the day confined to fast in fires, till the foul crimes done in my days of nature are burnt and purged away. But that I am forbid, to tell the secrets of my prison house. I could a tale unfold, whose lightest word would harrow up thy soul, freeze thy young blood, make thy two eyes, like stars, start from their spheres, thy knotted and combined locks to part, and each particular hair to stand on end, like quills upon the fretful porpentine. Harrow up thy soul, freeze thy young blood, the ghost of Hamlet's father, who has come back, not to comfort, to accuse. He continues, but this eternal blazon must not be to ears of flesh and blood. List, list, O list, if you didst ever thy dear father love, O God, revenge his foul and most unnatural murder. Revenge his foul and most unnatural murder. Murder. The word falls into the silence like a stone into still water, the rings spreading through the entire play, through everything that follows. Murder. Hamlet says, murder, haste me to know it, that I with wings as swift as meditation or the thoughts of love may sweep to my revenge. With wings as swift as meditation, the most revealing simile in the play, as swift as meditation, not as swift as an eagle, not as swift as lightning, not as swift as the wind, as swift as meditation, which is to say, not swift at all. Because meditation is not swift. Meditation is the opposite of swift. Meditation is the long, patient sitting with what is there, the turning over and over of the thought, the examination, the questioning, the refusal to act until the examination is complete. Hamlet promises to act as swiftly as meditation, and we already know what this means. He continues, now Hamlet here, 'tis given out that sleeping in my orchard, a serpent stung me. So the whole ear of Denmark is by a forged process of my death rankly abused. But know you, noble youth, the serpent that did sting thy father's life now wears his crown. The serpent that did sting thy father's life now wears his crown. Claudius, his father's brother, his mother's husband, the king of Denmark, is the murderer. He continues, with witchcraft of his wit, with traitorous gifts, O wicked wit and gifts, that have the power so to seduce, one to his shameful lust, the will of my most seeming virtuous queen. I that incestuous, that adulterate beast, with witchcraft of his wit, hath got the will of my most seeming virtuous queen. O Hamlet, what a falling off was there! What a falling off was there! The father's grief, the ghost's grief, not primarily at being murdered, at the faithlessness of the wife, the falling off from the heights of what they were, to what she chose instead, from Hyperion to a satyr, from the god of light to the lecherous beast. What a falling off! He continues, thus was I sleeping by a brother's hand, of life, of crown, of queen, at once dispatched, cut off even in the blossoms of my sin, unhouselled, disappointed, unanaled, no reckoning made, but sent to my account with all my imperfections on my head. O horrible, most horrible, if you hast nature in thee, bear it not. Let not the royal bed of Denmark be a couch for luxury and damned incest. But howsoever you pursue this act, taint not thy mind, nor let thy soul contrive against thy mother aught. Leave her to heaven and to those thorns that in her bosom lodge, to prick and sting her. Fare thee well at once, the glowworm shows the matin to be near, and gins to pale his uneffectual fire. Adieu, 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 remember me. The instruction, the only instruction, remember me. not avenge me immediately, not kill Claudius tonight, not take the crown, not save your mother. Remember me. And this remembering, this consciousness, this continual presence of the dead father in the mind of the living son is the heaviest burden Hamlet will carry. Through the entire play, through every scene, every soliloquy, every failed attempt at action. Remember me, he continues. O all you host of heaven, O earth, what else? And shall I couple hell? O fie! Hold my heart, and you my sinews, grow not instant old, but bear me stiffly up. Remember thee, I, you poor ghost, while memory holds a seat in this distracted globe. Remember thee, yea, from the table of my memory, I'll wipe away all trivial fond records, all saws of books, all forms, all pressures past, that youth and observation copied there, and thy commandment all alone shall live. Within the book and volume of my brain, unmixed with baser matter. Yes, by heaven. O most pernicious woman, O villain, villain, smiling damned villain. My tables, meet it is I set it down, that one may smile and be a villain. At least I am sure it may be so in Denmark. One may smile and be a villain. The first lesson of what Hamlet has just learned. The world is not what it seems. The smiling man is not necessarily good. The loving mother is not necessarily faithful. The respected king is not necessarily innocent. One may smile and be a villain. And if this is true, then nothing is what it seems. And every seeming must be examined. And the examination takes time. And the time is what the play is made of. Shakespeare writes, "My lord, as I was sewing in my closet, Lord Hamlet with his doublet all unbraced, no hat upon his head, his stockings fouled, ungartered and down-gyved to his ankle, pale as his shirt, his knees knocking each other, and with a look so piteous in purport, as if he had been loosed out of hell, to speak of horrors. He comes before me. Ophelia reporting to Polonius. Hamlet has come to her, disheveled, pale, his stockings down, his doublet opened, as if he had been loosed out of hell. He came in, he took her wrist, he studied her face for a very long time, he sighed, he let her go, he left, without speaking a word. Polonius immediately concludes, this is the madness of love. Hamlet loves Ophelia, and Ophelia's rejection, commanded by Polonius, has driven him mad. He will tell the king, he will use his daughter to test this theory, and in doing so, will set in motion the machinery of tragedy that will consume his daughter, his son, himself, and everyone around him, because Polonius sees what he expects and cannot see what is actually there. He continues, this is the very ecstasy of love, whose violent property foredoes itself, and leads the will to desperate undertakings, as oft as any passion under heaven that does afflict our natures. I am sorry. What have you given him any hard words of late? No, my good lord. But as you did command, I did repel his letters, and denied his access to me. That hath made him mad. Come, go we to the king. This must be known. This must be known. Polonius carrying his knowledge straight to the king, as he always does, as the good counselor always does, as the man who has no loyalty except to his position always does, not from evil, from habit, from the habit of the courtier, who has survived by always telling the king what he knows, and always framing it as service. This will be his death. Shakespeare writes, "Welcome, dear Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Moreover, that we did much long to see you. The need we have to use you did provoke our hasty sending. Something have you heard of Hamlet's transformation? So call it, sith nor the exterior nor the inward man resembles that it was. What it should be more than his father's death that thus hath put him so much from the understanding of himself, I cannot dream of. I entreat you both that being of so young days brought up with him, and six so neighbored to his youth and havior, that you vouchsafe your rest here in our court some little time. So by your companies to draw him on to pleasures, and to gather so much as from occasion you may glean, whether aught to us unknown afflicts him thus. That opened lies within our remedy. Claudius to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Hamlet's childhood friends, summoned to court to spy on Hamlet for the king, with the promise of reward and the pretense of concern. This is the world of Elsinore, where every friendship is potentially a surveillance, where every gesture of concern is potentially a manipulation, where no one can be entirely trusted. And Hamlet will discover this about his friends as he has discovered it about his mother and his uncle and the world. He continues later in scene 2, I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, foregone all custom of exercises, and indeed owe so heavily with my disposition, that this goodly frame the earth seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy the air, look you, this brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire, why it appeareth nothing to me but a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. A foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. The world that should be beautiful, that is beautiful, that everyone else seems to find beautiful, appears to Hamlet as a sterile promontory, as a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. Not because it is, because he cannot see it otherwise. Not since the revelation, not since the ghost, not since the knowledge of what Claudius did, and what his mother chose. He continues, what a piece of work is a man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, in form and moving, how express and admirable, in action, how like an angel, in apprehension, how like a god. The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me, no, nor woman neither, though by your smiling you seem to say so. What a piece of work is a man! The famous speech, often taken out of context, often quoted as celebration of human nobility, of human achievement, of the wonder of being human. But read in context, it is the opposite. What a piece of work is a man, how noble in reason, how infinite in faculty, how like an angel in action, how like a god in apprehension, and yet to me, this quintessence of dust. Man delights not me. The wonder is there. Hamlet sees it. He can articulate it. He can describe it with perfect eloquence, and none of it moves him. None of it reaches him. None of it changes the weariness, the staleness, the flatness, the unprofitability. Man delights not me. He continues, we'll have a speech straight. Come give us a taste of your quality. Come a passionate speech. One speech in it I chiefly loved. 'Twas Aeneas's tale to Dido, and thereabout of it especially, where he speaks of Priam's slaughter. The players have arrived, a traveling company of actors, and Hamlet, who cannot move himself to act, is transfixed by the art of acting. He requests a speech about Priam's slaughter, about grief, about the old king's death. He listens, and something begins to form in the mind of the person who cannot act. He continues after the players leave. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I! Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul so to his own conceit, that from her working all his visage wanned, tears in his eyes, distraction in his aspect, a broken voice, and his whole function suiting with thorns to his conceit. And all for nothing. For Hecuba, what's Hecuba to him, or he to Hecuba, that he should weep for her? What would he do had he the motive and the cue for passion that I have? He would drown the stage with tears, and cleave the general ear with horrid speech, make mad the guilty, and appall the free, confound the ignorant, and amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears. Yet I, a dull and muddy-mettled rascal, peak like John a dreams, unpregnant of my cause, and can say nothing. In which Hamlet turns the full force of his intelligence against himself. An actor can weep for a fictional queen who is nothing to him, and Hamlet, who has every reason, every motive, every provocation, can say nothing, can do nothing, can only speak in soliloquy, to himself, to the audience, to no one who can help. He continues, "Why, what an ass am I! This is most brave, that I, the son of a dear father murdered, prompted to my revenge by heaven and hell, must like a whore unpack my heart with words, and fall a-cursing like a very drab, a scullion. Fie, foe, about my brain. I have heard that guilty creatures sitting at a play have by the very cunning of the scene been struck so to the soul that presently they have proclaimed their malefactions. For murder, though it have no tongue, will speak with most miraculous organ. I'll have these players play something like the murder of my father before mine uncle. I'll observe his looks. I'll tempt him to the quick. If he do blench, I know my course. The spirit that I have seen may be the devil, and the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape. Yea, and perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy, as he is very potent with such spirits, abuses me to damn me. I'll have grounds more relative than this. The play's the thing, wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. The play's the thing, wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. The plan, finally, not revenge, not action, not the direct confrontation, a play. Hamlet, the man of words and thought, will use words and thought to prove the crime before he acts. The play within the play, the mousetrap, the mirror held up to the conscience of the king to catch it. And this plan, this brilliant, elegant, indirect plan, is absolutely Hamlet, and we already know that it will not be enough, that catching the conscience of the king in a play will not bring Hamlet to act, because there is always one more thing to think about, one more reason to wait, one more examination to perform before the action that keeps not coming. Shakespeare writes, "To be or not to be, that is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them." Stop. The most famous words in the English language, possibly in any language. To be or not to be, that is the question. Not the question Hamlet was given. He was given the question of revenge, of whether to kill Claudius, of whether to obey the ghost. To be or not to be is a different question. It is the question of whether to exist, whether to continue, whether the maintenance of consciousness in a world like this is worth the effort. He continues, to die, to sleep, no more. and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished, to die, to sleep perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. What dreams may come when we have shuffled off this mortal coil must give us pause. Must give us pause. The pause that prevents action. The uncertainty about what comes after. The impossibility of knowing what death is, whether it is sleep without dream or sleep with dream, and if with dream, what kind of dream? This uncertainty, which cannot be resolved by any investigation, by any examination, by any amount of thinking, gives us pause. He continues, there's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life? The undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will, and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others that we know not of. The undiscovered country, death, the place no traveler returns from, to report, to describe, to compare, to evaluate. And this unknowability, this absolute epistemological barrier between the living and the dead, is what keeps people alive. Not love of life, not hope, not the positive attraction of continued existence. Fear of the unknown. We bear the ills we have, rather than fly to others that we know not of. He continues, thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pith and moment, with this regard their currents turn awry, and lose the name of action. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all. The acknowledgement, not just Hamlet, all of us. The capacity to think, the ability to examine, the awareness of consequence, the knowledge of uncertainty, makes cowards of us all. The native hue of resolution, that bright, confident color of the person who knows what to do and simply does it, sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, turned pale by thinking, by the examination, by the consideration, by the recognition that things are more complicated than they appear, and enterprises of great pith and moment, the great actions, the necessary deeds, the things that must be done, lose the name of action, because thought intervenes, always, inevitably, and the action that was coming turns awry and is lost. This is the play, in one speech, the action that turns awry and loses the name of action. He continues, soft you now, the fair Ophelia, nymph, in thy orisons, be all my sins remembered. And he sees Ophelia, who has been placed here by Claudius and Polonius, who are hiding, watching, to determine whether Hamlet's madness is caused by love. And Hamlet, in the conversation that follows, is brutal. He says, get thee to a nunnery. Why wouldst you be a breeder of sinners? I am myself indifferent honest, but yet I could accuse me of such things that it were better my mother had not borne me. I am very proud, revengeful, ambitious, with more offenses at my beck than I have thoughts to put them in, imagination to give them shape, or time to act them in. What should such fellows as I do crawling between heaven and earth? We are errant knaves all, believe none of us. Go thy ways to a nunnery, get thee to a nunnery. The cruelty of the person who is in pain, directed at the person who cannot understand what is happening. Ophelia, who loves him, who has done what her father commanded, who was used as bait by the men around her, and who now receives the full force of Hamlet's contempt. For the world, for himself, for the performance of love, for the falseness of everything. Get thee to a nunnery. He continues, get thee to a nunnery, go farewell. Or if you wilt needs marry, marry a fool. For wise men know well enough what monsters you make of them. I have heard of your paintings well enough. God hath given you one face, and you make yourselves another. You jig, you amble, and you lisp, and nickname God's creatures, and make your wantonness your ignorance. Go to, I'll no more on't, it hath made me mad. I say we will have no more marriages. Those that are married already, all but one, shall live. The rest shall keep as they are. To a nunnery, go. All but one shall live. The threat, hidden in the sentence, not hidden enough for Claudius, who is listening, all but one, and Ophelia is left with the wreckage of what she thought she knew, of the person she thought she loved. Oh, what a noble mind is here o'erthrown! The courtier's, soldier's, scholar's eye, tongue, sword, the expectancy and rose of the fair state, the glass of fashion and the mold of form, the observed of all observers, quite down, and I of ladies most deject and wretched, that sucked the honey of his music vows, now see that noble and most sovereign reason, like sweet bells jangled, out of tune and harsh, that unmatched form and feature of blown youth, blasted with ecstasy. Oh, woe is me to have seen what I have seen, see what I see. To have seen what I have seen, see what I see. The present tense, Ophelia, who continues to see what she has seen, even now, even after, the noble mind o'erthrown, the sweet bells jangled, the unmatched form blasted with ecstasy. She mourns what Hamlet was, as Hamlet mourns what Denmark was, what his father was, what his mother was, what the world was, before. Shakespeare writes, "Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. But if you mouth it, as many of your players do, I had as lief the town crier spoke my lines. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hand, thus, but use all gently. For in the very torrent, tempest, and as I may say, whirlwind of your passion, you must acquire and beget a temperance that may give it smoothness." Hamlet instructing the actors. The person who cannot act, teaching others how to act. The irony, absolute, deliberate. He knows the irony. He speaks it anyway, because teaching the actors is a way of controlling what he cannot control in himself. He continues, "The purpose of playing, whose end both at the first and now was and is, to hold as 'twere the mirror up to nature, to show virtue her feature, scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time, his form and pressure. Hold the mirror up to nature," the most famous statement about the purpose of theater, of art, of fiction, to hold the mirror up, to show things as they are, not as we wish they were, not as we are told they are, as they are. And this mirror Hamlet is about to use to catch the conscience of the king. He continues before the play begins. "Now I am alone. No, wait, I must be idle. Get you a place. How fares our cousin Hamlet? Excellent, I faith, of the chameleon's dish. I eat the air promise crammed, You cannot feed capons so. And then the play begins. The play within the play. The mousetrap, which reenacts the murder of Hamlet's father, with the poison poured into the ear of the sleeping king. And Claudius watches, and Hamlet watches Claudius, and the tension builds. And then the king rises. What frights you, my lord? Give o'er the play. Give me some light. Away, lights, lights, lights. Lights. Claudius calls for light, and leaves. In the middle of the play, and Hamlet is vindicated, or so he believes. The play caught the conscience. The king reacted. He is guilty. And Hamlet says to Horatio, "Oh, good Horatio, I'll take the ghost's word for 1,000 pound. Didst perceive? Very well, my lord. Upon the talk of the poisoning, I did very well note him. Aha, come some music, come the recorders. For if the king like not the comedy, why then belike he likes it not. Purdy, come some music. He likes it not. The king likes not the comedy. Therefore he is guilty. Therefore the ghost told the truth. Therefore, and what follows therefore? Action, music. Hamlet calls for music. He celebrates. He quotes. He plays word games with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. With Polonius, he does not act. He has his proof. He has the confirmation. He has the cause for action. And he celebrates. Shakespeare writes, "Oh, my offense is rank. It smells to heaven. It hath the primal eldest curse upon it, a brother's murder. Pray can I not, though inclination be as sharp as will, my stronger guilt defeats my strong intent. And like a man to double business bound, I stand in pause where I shall first begin, and both neglect." Claudius, alone, attempting to pray. For the first time in the play, we are inside Claudius's mind, and we find something unexpected. A conscience, struggling, fighting against itself. He knows he is guilty. He knows the offense is rank. He knows the primal eldest curse, the curse of Cain, is upon him. And he cannot pray, cannot repent, cannot give up what his crime purchased. He continues, what if this cursed hand were thicker than itself with brother's blood? Is there not rain enough in the sweet heavens to wash it white as snow? Whereto serves mercy but to confront the visage of offense? And what's in prayer? But this twofold force, to be forestalled ere we come to fall, or pardoned being down. Then I'll look up. My fault is past. But oh, what form of prayer can serve my turn? Forgive me my foul murder. That cannot be, since I am still possessed of those effects for which I did the murder. My crown, mine own ambition, and my queen. May one be pardoned and retain the offense? In the corrupted currents of this world, offense's gilded hand may shove by justice, and oft 'tis seen, the wicked prize itself buys out the law. But 'tis not so above. There is no shuffling. There the action lies, in his true nature. And we ourselves compelled, even to the teeth and forehead of our faults, to give in evidence. To give in evidence. There is no shuffling above. No gilded hand to shove by justice. No wicked prize to buy out the law. The full truth, in the face of all faults. And Claudius cannot pray, because he will not give up what the murder bought. And Hamlet enters. Behind him, sword drawn. The moment, finally, the opportunity. And Hamlet says, "Now might I do it, Pat. Now he is praying, and now I'll do it." And so he goes to heaven, and so am I revenged. That would be scanned. A villain kills my father, and for that, I, his sole son, do this same villain, send to heaven. Oh, this is hire and salary, not revenge. Not revenge. Hamlet will not kill Claudius while he is praying, because if Claudius dies while in a state of prayer, he goes to heaven, and that is not revenge. The reasoning, the impossibly elaborate reasoning that prevents the action, is it genuine, or is it the latest form of the examination that always precedes the action that never comes? We cannot know. Hamlet cannot know. He continues, "Know, upsword, and know you a more horrid hint, when he is drunk asleep, or in his rage, or in the incestuous pleasure of his bed, at gaming, swearing, or about some act, that has no relish of salvation in't. Then trip him, that his heels may kick at heaven, and that his soul may be as damned and black as hell, whereto it goes. My mother stays. This physic but prolongs thy sickly days. This physic but prolongs thy sickly days." Hamlet sheathes the sword, leaves. Claudius rises from prayer and says, "My words fly up, my thoughts remain below. Words without thoughts never to heaven go. Words without thoughts never to heaven go." Claudius, who could not pray, who could not genuinely repent, whose words flew up, but whose thoughts remained below, was not actually in a state of grace. And Hamlet, who worried about killing him while he was in a state of grace, missed the opportunity, for no reason, based on reasoning that the evidence did not support, based on thinking, too much thinking, the action that turns awry and loses the name of action again. Shakespeare writes, "Now, mother, what's the matter? Hamlet, you hast thy father much offended. Mother, you have my father much offended. Come, come, you answer with an idle tongue. Go, go, you question with a wicked tongue." The closet scene, Hamlet and his mother, Gertrude, alone for the first time in the play. Polonius is hiding behind the arras, the tapestry on the wall, listening, as everyone listens, in the court of Elsinore, where surveillance is the practice of power. Hamlet presses his mother, forces her to look at what she has chosen. She is frightened. She calls for help, and Polonius, behind the arras, calls out. And Hamlet, hearing a sound, thinking it is Claudius, strikes. He continues, "How now? A rat, dead for a ducat. Dead. Oh, I am slain. What hast you done? Nay, I know not. Is it the king? Is it the king?" Hamlet's first question, after killing someone, not "Who did I kill?" Not "Are they dead?" Not "I am sorry." Is it the king? He draws back the arras, finds Polonius. "You wretched, rash, intruding fool, farewell, I took thee for thy better. I took thee for thy better." The epitaph of Polonius, killed by mistake, by the man who cannot act when he should, who acted at the wrong moment on the wrong person. He continues, "O Hamlet, you hast cleft my heart in twain. Oh, throw away the worser part of it, and live the purer with the other half. Good night, mother. Good night, mother." The scene ends with the body of Polonius and the shattered relationship between Hamlet and Gertrude, and the knowledge that everything is now accelerating toward its conclusion, because Polonius is dead and Laertes will come back for revenge. The wheel is turning. Act 3 is over. And where are we? A ghost has spoken and demanded remembrance and revenge. A play has been staged, and the king's conscience has been caught. A prayer has been interrupted, and an opportunity has been missed. A man has been killed, the wrong man, at the wrong moment, for the wrong reason. And Hamlet, who has been paralyzed through 3 acts by the excess of his thinking, has finally acted, but in the worst possible way, at the worst possible time, against the wrong target, and the consequences are now arriving, faster than thinking can manage them. Ophelia will break, Laertes will return, Claudius will plot, the trap will be set, and Hamlet, who has been trapped by his own mind for 3 acts, will now be trapped by the world outside his mind, and the play will move toward its ending, which everyone has always known is coming. The ending that the play has been building toward from the first question. On the cold battlements. Who's there? Who is there? Who is Hamlet really? What is he capable of? What will he do? These questions will be answered in Acts 4 and 5, when the time for thinking has finally been taken away by the speed of events, by the urgency of circumstance, by the catastrophe that his action and his inaction have together produced. Part 2 is coming. Stay with me. That is the end. Part 1. Acts 1 through 3 of Hamlet by William Shakespeare. And what has happened here? A ghost has appeared on cold battlements at midnight in the form of a dead king who was murdered by his brother, who married his wife and took his throne. And his son, Hamlet, has been given the task of revenge and has spent 3 acts preparing for it, examining it, testing it, thinking about it, and has not performed it. Because Hamlet, the greatest character in the history of dramatic literature, is the person who thinks too much, who sees too clearly, who understands too well that action, however justified, however necessary, however clearly demanded, has consequences that cannot be fully foreseen, that cannot be fully controlled, that will involve harm to people beyond the target, that will change things that should not be changed, and therefore cannot act, not from cowardice, not from wickedness, not from lack of love for his father, from the knowledge that the world is more complicated than the ghost's simple demand, remember me and avenge me. And Hamlet remembers and cannot avenge, because to avenge would be to become the thing he is avenging himself against. The person who kills for what seems to them a sufficient reason. The person who makes themselves the judge, the executioner, the arbiter of life and death. And Hamlet knows what that person is. He has met one. He is living under him. He is the king. Part 2 is coming, Acts 4 and 5, where the time for thinking is taken away, and Hamlet acts, and pays the price of the actions he could not take earlier. And the price is everything. You are listening to Jamil, and this is The Classic Mind, Hamlet, by William Shakespeare. Part 1 is complete. Welcome back to The Classic Mind. Part 1 gave us the question, to be or not to be, and gave us the person who cannot answer it, Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark, who thinks too much, who sees too clearly, who cannot find the action that adequately expresses what he knows and feels and has been commanded to do by the ghost of his dead father. Remember me. Part 1 gave us 3 acts of a man who remembers but cannot act, who stages a play to prove what he already knows, who finds Claudius in prayer and does not kill him, who kills Polonius by accident at the wrong moment behind a tapestry when he thought it was the king. And now everything has changed. Part 2 is Acts 4 and 5. The world is moving faster than Hamlet. Ophelia is breaking, Laertes is coming, Claudius is plotting, England is waiting, and Hamlet, who has spent 3 acts unable to act, will now be acted upon by the world he delayed too long in. Until, at the very end, in the last possible moment, with nothing left to lose, and nothing left to think about. Because everyone around him is already dying, he acts, and the price is everything. This is part 2 of Hamlet by William Shakespeare, Acts 4 and 5. The readiness is all. Shakespeare writes, "There's matter in these sighs, these profound heaves. You must translate, 'tis fit we understand them. Where is your son? Bestow this place on us a little while. Oh, come away, my soul is full of discord and dismay." Gertrude to Claudius. Immediately after the closet scene, immediately after Polonius was killed, the queen is shaking, her soul full of discord, her world, which she arranged so carefully after the old king's death, crumbling around her. Claudius asks what happened, and Gertrude tells him. She says, "Mad as the sea and wind, when both contend, which is the mightier?" In his lawless fit, behind the arras, hearing something stir, whips out his rapier, cries a rat, and in his brainish apprehension, kills the unseen good old man. Mad as the sea and wind, Gertrude covers for Hamlet, or describes what she genuinely saw. Madness, the breakdown of the rational, the violent, unpredictable action of the person who has gone past the edge. Claudius responds, "O heavy deed! It had been so with us, had we been there. His liberty is full of threats to all, to you yourself, to us, to everyone. Alas, how shall this bloody deed be answered? It will be laid to us, whose providence should have kept short, unlinked, confined. But so much was our love, we would not understand what was most fit. But like the owner of a foul disease, to keep it from divulging, let it feed, even on the pith of life. Where is he gone? Let it feed, even on the pith of life." Claudius, who has been covering his own crime, accusing Hamlet of exactly what he himself is guilty of. The owner of a foul disease, who hides it and lets it consume from within. The projection is perfect and perfectly unconscious. He continues, "Go seek him out, speak fair, and bring the body into the chapel. I'll call my wisest friends and let them know, and what's untimely done. So haply slander, whose whisper o'er the world's diameter, as level as the cannon to his blank, transports his poison shot, may miss our name and hit the woundless air. Oh, come away. My soul is full of discord and dismay. My soul is full of discord and dismay." The king says the words that should be Hamlet's, that should be Gertrude's, that should belong to the grieving, the innocent, the wronged. But in the court of Elsinore, discord and dismay belong to everyone equally. The guilty and the innocent, the murderer and the murdered son, the manipulator and the manipulated. Everyone. This is the world the play creates, where the poison spreads outward from the source until it has touched everyone, until everyone is sick, until no one is clean. Shakespeare writes, "Safely stowed, but soft, what noise? Who calls on Hamlet? Oh, here they come. What have you done, my lord, with the dead body? Compounded it with dust, whereto 'tis kin. Tell us where 'tis, that we may take it thence and bear it to the chapel. Do not believe it." Hamlet, after killing Polonius, after hiding the body, playing, still performing the madness that may or may not be performed. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, his childhood friends, now his jailers, come to find the body, and Hamlet answers them with riddles, with contempt, with the voice of the person who knows that they are not friends, that they are servants of the king, that every word they say is reported back. He says to Rosencrantz, "The body is with the king, but the king is not with the body." The king is a thing, my lord, of nothing. Bring me to him. The king is a thing of nothing, the philosophical insult of the man who killed his father, the man who took his crown, the man who married his mother, a thing of nothing, and brought before Claudius. Hamlet continues the game. He says, "Now, Hamlet, where's Polonius? At supper." At supper, where? Not where he eats, but where he is eaten. A certain convocation of politic worms are e'en at him. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. We fat all creatures else to fat us, and we fat ourselves for maggots. Your fat king and your lean beggar is but variable service, 2 dishes, but to 1 table. That's the end. That's the end. Hamlet's darkest humor, his most savage. The fat king and the lean beggar, both food for worms, both equally reduced, by death, by the democracy of decomposition. The king is a thing of nothing, not because he is weak, because death makes all things nothing, equally, without preference, without the distinction between king and beggar, constructs and maintains so carefully. He continues, "A man may fish with the worm that hath eat of a king, and eat of the fish that hath fed of that worm." What do you mean by this? Nothing but to show you how a king may go a progress through the guts of a beggar. Where's Polonius? In heaven. Send thither to see. If your messenger find him not there, seek him it other place yourself. But if indeed you find him not, within this month you shall nose him as you go, up the stairs into the lobby. Go seek him there. He will stay till you come. He will stay till you come. The contempt, the savage indifference, the humor that is not humor, the laughter over the abyss of the person who has nothing left to lose, and knows it, and uses that knowledge as a kind of freedom. Claudius then reveals his plan. England. Hamlet is being sent to England. He says, "The present death of Hamlet, do it, England. For like the hectic in my blood he rages, and you must cure me, till I know 'tis done, however my haps, my joys were ne'er begun." The present death of Hamlet. Claudius has arranged for Hamlet to be killed in England. A sealed letter, carried by Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who do not know what they carry. The death warrant for the prince, sealed with the king's ring. And Hamlet suspects, and does not know for certain, and is being moved by the machinery of Claudius's will, in a direction he cannot fully resist. Shakespeare writes, "Good sir, whose powers are these?" "They are of Norway, sir." "How purposed, sir, I pray you, against some part of Poland?" "Who commands them, sir?" "The nephew to old Norway, Fortinbras." "Goes it against the main of Poland, sir, or for some frontier?" "Truly to speak, and with no addition, we go to gain a little patch of ground, that hath in it no profit but the name. To pay 5 ducats, 5, I would not farm it. Nor will it yield to Norway or the Pole a ranker rate, should it be sold in fee. Fortinbras, Prince of Norway, moving through Denmark with his army, to fight for a patch of ground worth nothing. And Hamlet watches them pass, and thinks, he says, "How all occasions do inform against me, and spur my dull revenge. What is a man, if his chief good, and market of his time, be but to sleep and feed? A beast, no more. Sure he that made us, with such large discourse, looking before and after, gave us not that capability, and godlike reason to fust in us unused. Now whether it be bestial oblivion, or some craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event, a thought which quartered hath but 1 part wisdom, and ever 3 parts coward. I do not know why, yet I live to say this thing's to do, since I have cause, and will, and strength, and means to do it, thinking too precisely on the event. The self-diagnosis, the most honest thing Hamlet says about himself in the entire play. Craven scruple of thinking too precisely on the event. This is what he is doing. This is what he has been doing. 3 acts of it, and he knows it, and names it, and still cannot stop doing it. He continues, examples gross as earth exhort me. Witness this army of such mass and charge, led by a delicate and tender prince, whose spirit with divine ambition puffed, makes mouths at the invisible event, exposing what is mortal and unsure, to all that fortune, death and danger dare, even for an eggshell, rightly to be great, it's not to stir without great argument, but greatly to find quarrel in a straw, when honor's at the stake. How stand I then, that have a father killed, a mother stained, excitements of my reason and my blood, and let all sleep, while to my shame I see the imminent death of 20,000 men, that for a fantasy and trick of fame go to their graves like beds, fight for a plot whereon the numbers cannot try the cause, which is not tomb enough and continent to hide the slain. Oh, from this time forth, my thoughts be bloody, or be nothing worth. My thoughts be bloody, or be nothing worth. The resolution, made for the 3rd or 4th time, the promise to stop thinking and start doing, which Hamlet has made before and not kept. But something is different now. He has seen Fortinbras leading 20,000 men to die for a patch of ground, worth nothing, for honor, for the name of the thing, not the thing itself. And Hamlet has a father killed, a mother stained, the clearest possible cause, and has done nothing, while Fortinbras acts for an eggshell. My thoughts be bloody or be nothing worth. The promise, but Hamlet is being sent to England, and the promise cannot yet be kept. Shakespeare writes, where is the beauteous majesty of Denmark? How now, Ophelia, how should I your true love know from another one? By his cockle hat and staff, and his sandal shoon. Ophelia entering singing, about a pilgrim, about a lover, about death. Gertrude asks what this means. Claudius watches. Horatio says she speaks much of her father, says she hears there's tricks in the world, and hems and beats her heart, spurns enviously at straws, speaks things in doubt that carry but half sense. Her speech is nothing, yet the unshaped use of it doth move the hearers to collection. They aim at it, and botch the words up fit to their own thoughts, which as her winks and nods and gestures yield them, indeed would make one think there might be thought, though nothing sure, yet much unhappily. Though nothing sure, yet much unhappily. The description of grief that has dissolved into something beyond grief. Who has lost her father? To Hamlet, who has been rejected by Hamlet, who has been used by her father, who has been watched and managed by the men around her since the play began, who finally, in the loss of the last person who was hers, breaks. She sings, he is dead and gone, lady, he is dead and gone. At his head a grass-green turf, at his heels a stone. Oh ho, white his shroud as the mountain snow, larded all with sweet flowers, which be wept to the ground did not go, with true love showers. White his shroud as the mountain snow, the songs of grief, of madness, of the mind, that can no longer contain what has been placed in it. And she distributes flowers, the famous scene, rosemary, pansies, fennel, columbines, rue, violets, to Claudius, to to Gertrude, to Laertes, who has just arrived. Each flower with its meaning, each meaning a message that the mad girl delivers more honestly than anyone in the court has managed in the whole play. Rosemary for remembrance, pansies for thoughts, rue for repentance, violets for faithfulness, which she cannot give, because they withered all when her father died. She says, there's rue for you, and here's some for me. We may call it herb of grace o' Sundays. Oh, you must wear your rue with a difference. There's a daisy. I would give you some violets, but they withered all when my father died. They say he made a good end, for bonny sweet robin is all my joy. They withered all when my father died. The most devastating line of Ophelia's madness. The violets for faithfulness, for loyalty, for the constancy that the world of Elsinore has made impossible. All withered, all gone when her father died, and then she is gone. And Laertes says, O heat, dry up my brains, tears 7 times salt, burn out the sense and virtue of mine eye. By heaven, thy madness shall be paid with weight, till our scale turn the beam. O Rose of May, dear maid, kind sister, sweet Ophelia. O heavens, is't possible a young maid's wits should be as mortal as an old man's life? Nature is fine in love, and where 'tis fine, it sends some precious instance of itself after the thing it loves. Nature is fine in love, and sends itself after the thing it loves. Ophelia's mind has followed her father into wherever the dead go. Her sanity, the precious instance of herself, sent after the thing she loves. This is what love costs in this play. This is what the world of Elsinore has done to the people who could not protect themselves from its corruption. Ophelia, who was innocent, who was used, who was loved and broken by the men who loved her and the men who used her, and could not always tell themselves which they were doing. Shakespeare writes, where is this king? Sirs, stand you all without. No, let's come in. I pray you give me leave. We will. I thank you. Keep the door. O you vile king, give me my father. Laertes, storming the castle, with a mob behind him, calling for Claudius, demanding his father, not thinking, not examining, not weighing the evidence, not asking whether the ghost is real or a devil in disguise. Acting. He says, that drop of blood that's calm proclaims me bastard, cries cuckold to my father, brands the harlot, even here between the chaste, unsmirched brows of my true mother. Laertes is the foil to Hamlet, the mirror, the demonstration of what the man of action looks like, the man who does not think too much, who hears that his father is dead and comes immediately, with fire, with an army, with the pure, uncomplicated rage of the person who knows what they want and goes directly for it. He says to Claudius, O you vile king, to hell allegiance, vows to the blackest devil, conscience and grace to the profoundest pit. I dare damnation. To this point I stand, that both the worlds I give to negligence. Let come what comes, only I'll be revenged most thoroughly for my father. I dare damnation, the contrast, absolute. Hamlet dared nothing, or dared only in soliloquy, dared in words, in the privacy of his own skull. Laertes dares damnation, publicly, without hesitation, without the pale cast of thought. Both in earth, both worlds, he cares nothing for either, only revenge. And Claudius, the smooth politician, the king who has survived everything so far, turns Laertes. He says, Laertes, I must commune with your grief, or you deny me right. Go but apart, make choice of whom your wisest friends you will, and they shall hear and judge twixt you and me. If by direct or by collateral hand they find us touched, we will our kingdom give, our crown, our life, and all that we call ours, to you in satisfaction. But if not, be you content to lend your patience to us, and we shall jointly labor with your soul to give it due content. Jointly labor with your soul to give it due content. Claudius, turning the angry man's energy into a tool. He will direct Laertes toward Hamlet. He will use the revenge of the son to accomplish what he, the king, cannot do directly. He will set the trap that will destroy everyone. Shakespeare writes, "Laertes, was your father dear to you, or are you like the painting of a sorrow, a face without a heart?" Why ask you this? Not that I think you did not love your father, but that I know love is begun by time, and that I see in passages of proof time qualifies the spark and fire of it. There lives within the very flame of love a kind of wick or snuff that will abate it, and nothing is at a like goodness still, for goodness growing to a pleurisy dies in his own too much. That we would do, we should do when we would, for this would changes, and hath abatements and delays, as many as there are tongues, are hands, are accidents. And then this should is like a spendthrift sigh, that hurts by easing. That we would do, we should do when we would. Claudius speaks the moral of Hamlet's failure to Laertes, about acting on grief, about not letting the would become should, become might have. This is Claudius, the murderer, the smooth politician, the man who acted when he saw his opportunity, and never wavered, and never examined, and paid no price until now. He continues with the plan. Laertes, will you be ruled by me? Aye, my lord, so you will not o'errule me to a peace, to thine own peace, if he be now returned, as checking at his voyage, and that he means no more to undertake it. I will work him to an exploit, now ripe in my device, under the which he shall not choose but fall. And for his death, no wind of blame shall breathe, but even his mother shall uncharge the practice and call it accident. Call it accident, the plot, a fencing match between Hamlet and Laertes, with an unbaited, unblunted, poisoned sword, so that even if Hamlet wins, he dies, and a poisoned cup of wine as backup should the sword miss. Every escape route closed, every possibility covered. The most careful plan Claudius has ever made. More careful than the murder of the king, because this time the man he is killing knows too much, and has been harder to kill than anticipated. And then, into this planning, this plotting, this careful construction of the fatal trap, a messenger arrives. Gertrude enters and speaks one of the most famous speeches in the play. She says there is a willow grows aslant a brook that shows his hoar leaves in the glassy stream. Therewith fantastic garlands did she make, of crowflowers, nettles, daisies, and long purples, that liberal shepherds give a grosser name, but our cold maids do dead men's fingers call them. There on the pendant boughs, her coronet weeds, clamoring to hang, an envious sliver broke, when down her weedy trophies and herself fell in the weeping brook. Her clothes spread wide, and mermaid-like, awhile they bore her up, which time she chanted snatches of old lauds, as one incapable of her own distress, or like a creature native and indued unto that element. But long it could not be, till that her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled the poor wretch from her melodious lay to muddy death. To muddy death, Ophelia, drowned in a brook among the flowers, singing, as one incapable of her own distress, the most tender death in all of Shakespeare. She went not fighting, not struggling, not against the water, into it, singing, like a creature native to the element, until her garments, heavy with their drink, pulled her down to muddy death. And Laertes says, "Too much of water hast you, poor Ophelia, and therefore I forbid my tears. But yet it is our trick. Nature her custom holds. Let shame say what it will. When these are gone, the woman will be out. Adieu, my lord. I have a speech of fire that fain would blaze, but that this folly drowns it. A speech of fire that fain would blaze, but drowns it in tears for his sister. Who was innocent? Who was beautiful? Who was singing as she drowned, as one incapable of her own distress?" Shakespeare writes, "Is she to be buried in Christian burial when she willfully seeks her own salvation? I tell thee she is, and therefore make her grave straight. The crowner hath sat on her, and finds it Christian burial. How can that be, unless she drowned herself in her own defense? Why, 'tis found so. It must be se offendendo. It cannot be else. For here lies the point. If I drown myself wittingly, it argues an act. And an act hath three branches. It is to act, to do, to perform. Argal she drowned herself wittingly. The gravediggers, the clowns, the fools, the common men who debate the question of whether Ophelia's death was suicide, and whether suicide entitles her to Christian burial, with the complete formal logic of people who have absorbed the language of authority without the education behind it. Se offendendo for se defendendo, argo for ergo. The wrong words, used with perfect confidence, and they are funny, deliberately funny. Shakespeare's great release in the middle of the play's darkest movement. Before Hamlet arrives, the gravedigger digs and sings, "In youth when I did love, methought it was very sweet to contract o' the time for a my behove. O methought there was nothing ameet." Hamlet arrives with Horatio and watches. He says, "Has this fellow no feeling of his business that he sings at grave making? Custom hath made it in him a property of easiness. 'Tis even so, the hand of little employment hath the daintier sense. Custom hath made it a property of easiness." The philosophical observation of Hamlet watching the gravedigger who sings while he works, because the work is so familiar, it no longer disturbs. And what does this say about familiarity, about the numbing of custom, about the way the terrible becomes ordinary? And what does it say that Hamlet can still be shocked by what the gravedigger has ceased to feel? That Hamlet has not become accustomed to death, to Elsinore, to the way things are. And this is both his tragedy and his greatness. He approaches and asks the gravedigger whose grave it is. The gravedigger answers in riddles. "It is mine. It is no man's. It is a woman's." And then Hamlet asks, "How long hast you been a grave maker?" "Of all the days in the year, I came to that day that our last king, Hamlet, overcame Fortinbras." "How long is that since?" "Cannot you tell that? Every fool can tell that. It was the very day that young Hamlet was born. He that is mad and sent into England. Ay, marry. Why was he sent into England? Why, because he was mad. He shall recover his wits there, or if he do not, 'tis no great matter there. Why? 'Twill not be seen in him there. There the men are as mad as he. There the men are as mad as he. The fool's wisdom, The gravedigger's assessment of Hamlet and of England about the skull being thrown up. How long will a man lie in the earth ere he rot? And the gravedigger says, a tanner will last you 9 year, or 8 year, or 9 year. A tanner will last you 9 year. Why he more than another? Why, sir, his hide is so tanned with his trade that he will keep out water a great while, and your water is a sore decayer of your whoreson dead body. Here's a skull now. This skull hath lain in the earth 23 years. Whose was it? A whoreson mad fellow's it was. Whose do you think it was? Nay, I know not. A pestilence on him for a mad rogue. He poured a flagon of Rhenish on my head once. This same skull, sir, was Yorick's skull, the king's jester. Yorick's skull, the king's jester, who poured wine on the gravedigger's head, who made Hamlet laugh, who is now a skull. And Hamlet holds it, and speaks the most famous meditation on death that Shakespeare ever wrote. Hamlet holds the skull, and says, alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio, a fellow of infinite jest, of most excellent fancy. He hath borne me on his back 1,000 times. And now, how abhorred in my imagination it is! My gorge rises at it. Here hung those lips that I have kissed I know not how oft. Where be your guides now, your gambols, your psalms, your flashes of merriment that were wont to set the table on a roar? Not one now to mock your own grinning, quite chop-fallen. Now get you to my lady's chamber, and tell her, let her paint an inch thick, to this favor she must come. Make her laugh at that. Make her laugh at that, the skull of Yorick, who made everyone laugh, who bore Hamlet on his back, whose lips Hamlet kissed as a child, now a thing of horror, the gorge rising at it, and the meditation that follows, not only about Yorick, about all of them, everyone. He continues, do you think Alexander looked Otis fashion in the earth? E'en so, and smelt so. Pah, e'en so, my lord. To what base uses we may return, Horatio. Why may not imagination trace the noble dust of Alexander till he find it stopping a bunghole? 'Twere to consider too curiously, to consider so. No faith, not a jot, but to follow him thither with modesty enough, and likelihood to lead it. Alexander died, Alexander was buried, Alexander returneth into dust. The dust is earth, of earth we make loam, and why of that loam, whereto he was converted, might they not stop a beer barrel? Imperious Caesar, dead and turned to clay, might stop a hole to keep the wind away. Oh, that that earth, which kept the world in awe, should patch a wall to expel the winter's flaw. Imperious Caesar, dead and turned to clay, the greatest men, the greatest conquerors, the greatest minds, stopping a bunghole, patching a wall, the absolute democracy of death, which the gravediggers already knew. And the gravediggers' songs already celebrated, and which Hamlet now confronts, standing in a graveyard, holding a skull that once wore a face he kissed. And something happens here, something shifts. Hamlet, who could not act, who could not reconcile the demand of the ghost with the complexity of action, is standing in the place where all the complexity is resolved, in the earth, equally, without distinction, without the overcomplication of the living. Alexander, Caesar, Yorick, the fat king and the lean beggar, the gravedigger and the prince, all equal here. In the end, which is the beginning of another thing, the beginning of readiness, because if this is the end, if this is where all roads lead, then perhaps the action that was so impossible is not quite so heavy as it seemed. The only thing that remains is to do it and be done, and join them here in the democracy of dust. Shakespeare writes, "What ceremony else? Her obsequies have been as far enlarged as we have warranty. Her death was doubtful, and but that great command o'ersways the order, she should in ground unsanctified been lodged till the last trumpet. For charitable prayers, shards, flints, and pebbles should be thrown on her. Yet here she has allowed her virgin krantz, her maiden struments, and the bringing home of bell and burial. The priest, refusing the full rites for Ophelia, whose death was doubtful, whose death the church suspects was self-inflicted, and therefore cannot be fully honored. And Laertes says, lay her in the earth, and from her fair and unpolluted flesh may violets spring. I tell thee, churlish priest, a ministering angel shall my sister be when you liest howling. A ministering angel shall my sister be when you liest howling." And then Hamlet sees who is being buried. He says, "What, the fair Ophelia? Sweets to the sweet. Farewell. I hoped you shouldst have been my Hamlet's wife. I thought thy bride bed to have decked, sweet maid, and not have strewed thy grave. Sweets to the sweet, Gertrude, scattering flowers over the grave of the girl her son loved, and broke, and left. And Laertes leaps into the grave, and cries out, Hold off the earth awhile, till I have caught her once more in mine arms. Now pile your dust upon the quick and dead, till of this flat a mountain you have made, to o'ertop old Pelion, or the skyish head of blue Olympus." And Hamlet steps forward, reveals himself. He says, "What is he whose grief bears such an emphasis, whose phrase of sorrow conjures the wandering stars, and makes them stand like wonder-wounded hearers? This is I, Hamlet the Dane. This is I, Hamlet the Dane, not the prince, not the son of the dead king, not the madman sent to England, Hamlet of Denmark, here, claiming his name, his place, his country." And he says to Laertes, "I loved Ophelia. 40,000 brothers could not with all their quantity of love make up my sum. What wilt you do for her? I prithee take thy fingers from my throat, for though I am not splenitive and rash, yet have I in me something dangerous, which let thy wisdom fear. Hold off thy hand. I loved Ophelia." The declaration, late, as everything in this play is late. The action that comes after the time for it has passed. He loved her, and he could not show it, and it destroyed her, as his inaction will destroy everyone, including himself. Shakespeare writes, "So much for this, sir. Now shall you see the other." You do remember all the circumstance. Remember it, my lord. Sir, in my heart there was a kind of fighting that would not let me sleep. Methought I lay worse than the Mutines and the Bilbos. Rashly, and praised be rashness for it. Let us know, our indiscretion sometimes serves us well, when our deep plots do pall. And that should learn us there's a divinity that shapes our ends, rough hew them how we will. There's a divinity that shapes our ends, the change, the difference between the Hamlet of Acts 1, 2, 3 and this Hamlet. This Hamlet, who has come back from England, who found the death warrant, who replaced the names with Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who escaped the ship, who has been in the sea and returned. This Hamlet says there's a divinity that shapes our ends, not the paralyzed thinker, not the man who cannot act, the man who has accepted that consequences cannot be controlled, that something larger than individual will is moving through events, and that what is required is not perfect planning, not the certain knowledge of the right moment, but readiness. He continues, "Is't not to be damned to let this canker of our nature come in further evil? It is not, nor it cannot come to good. But you wouldst not think how ill all's here about my heart. But it is no matter. If your mind dislike anything, obey it. I will forestall their repair hither, and say you are not fit, not a whit. We defy augury. There is special providence in the fall of a sparrow. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all, since no man of aught he leaves knows what is't to leave betimes. Let be. The readiness is all. Let be. The most important speech in the entire play. The resolution of everything that Hamlet has been since the ghost spoke. There is special providence in the fall of a sparrow. Not the proud claim of the young prince, not the bright intelligence of the student at Wittenberg, not the elaborate planning of the mousetrap. Something quieter, something that sounds almost like Lao Tzu, almost like the Buddha, almost like Marcus Aurelius sitting in his tent at night, accepting what cannot be changed. The readiness is all. I am ready, whatever comes, whenever it comes. If it be now, 'tis not to come. If it be not to come, it will be now. If it be not now, yet it will come. The readiness is all. Since no man of aught he leaves knows one is to leave betimes, since no man knows what they are giving up by leaving early. What difference does the timing make? Let be, let it come, whatever it is, whenever it comes, I am ready. This is Hamlet, arrived, finally, at the place the ghost was asking him to find. Not revenge, readiness. The willingness to meet what comes, without the planning, without the examination, without the pale cast of thought, turning the resolution to cowardice. The readiness is all. Shakespeare writes, "Come, Hamlet, come and take this hand from me." Osric presenting Laertes. The duel arranged. Hamlet says to Laertes, "Give me your pardon, sir. I have done you wrong, but pardoned as you are a gentleman. This presence knows, and you must needs have heard, how I am punished with a sore distraction. What I have done, that might your nature, honor, and exception roughly awake, I here proclaim was madness. Was Hamlet wronged, Laertes? Never Hamlet. If Hamlet from himself be taken away, and when he's not himself does wrong Laertes, then Hamlet does it not. Hamlet denies it. Who does it then? His madness. If't be so, Hamlet is of the faction that is wronged. His madness is poor Hamlet's enemy. His madness is poor Hamlet's enemy. The apology, the explanation, which is also an evasion. Was Hamlet mad? Or was he pretending? Or had he driven himself mad with pretending? He does not know, cannot know. And Laertes responds with formal grace, accepting the apology while concealing the poison. The duel begins. Hamlet scores. Gertrude drinks from the poisoned cup meant for Hamlet. He continues, "Come on, sir, come, my lord. One, no, judgment. A hit, a very palpable hit. Well again, stay, give me drink. Hamlet, this pearl is thine, here's to thy health." Gertrude drinks. Claudius tries to stop her. Too late. He says, "Gertrude, do not drink." "I will, my lord. I pray you pardon me. I will, my lord." The most defiant thing Gertrude says in the play. She has been managed and controlled and moved through events like a chess piece by Claudius, by the court, by the politics of Denmark. And now, in the moment of the duel, she does what she wants. She drinks, and Hamlet and Laertes continue, and the weapons are exchanged. In the scuffle, each now holding the other's weapon. Laertes strikes Hamlet, Hamlet strikes Laertes, both with the poisoned blade, both dying. Gertrude falls. She says, "No, no, the drink, the drink. Oh, my dear Hamlet, the drink, the drink. I am poisoned, I am poisoned." And Laertes, dying, tells Hamlet the truth. He says, "It is here, Hamlet. Hamlet, you art slain. No medicine in the world can do thee good. In thee there is not half an hour's life. The treacherous instrument is in thy hand, unbaited and envenomed. The foul practice hath turned itself on me. Lo, here I lie, never to rise again. Thy mother's poisoned. I can no more. The king's to blame. The king's to blame." And Hamlet, dying, with half an hour of life, more or less, acts. He says, "The point and venom too, then venom to thy work. Here, you incestuous, murderous, damned Dane, drink off this potion. Is thy union here? Follow my mother, follow my mother." Hamlet kills Claudius with the poisoned sword and forces the poisoned wine into his mouth. The action taken at last, not in the elaborate plan, not through the mousetrap, not through the careful examination and the chosen moment. In the chaos of dying, when there is nothing left to think about, when everything has been stripped away, when the readiness is all that remains. And Laertes says, he is justly served. It is a poison tempered by himself. Exchange forgiveness with me, noble Hamlet. Mine and my father's death come not upon thee, nor thine on me. Exchange forgiveness, the forgiveness between the two sons who both lost their fathers, who both wanted revenge, one of whom got it immediately, without thinking, one of whom could not get it for 5 acts, and got it only in the moment of his death. Both forgiving each other, Shakespeare writes. "I am dead, Horatio. Wretched queen, adieu. You that look pale and tremble at this chance, that are but mutes or audience to this act. Had I but time, as this fell Sergeant Death is strict in his arrest, oh, I could tell you. But let it be, Horatio. I am dead, you livest. Report me and my cause aright to the unsatisfied. Report me and my cause aright." Hamlet dying and thinking of his reputation, of the story that will be told, of whether the world will understand what happened here. The man of thought, even in dying, wants the account to be accurate. Horatio says he will drink the poison too, and Hamlet stops him. He says, "As you art a man, give me the cup, let go. By heaven I'll hat, O God, Horatio, what a wounded name, things standing thus unknown, shall I leave behind me. If you didst ever hold me in thy heart, absent thee from felicity while, and in this harsh world, draw thy breath in pain to tell my story, to tell my story." Hamlet's last request, not avenge me, not remember me, tell my story. The man of words, who spent the play unable to act, asks for the one thing he knows how to do, the one thing he trusts. Tell it correctly, so that the world understands what happened and why. He continues, "What warlike noise is this? Young Fortinbras with conquest come from Poland. To the ambassadors of England gives this warlike volley. Oh, I die, Horatio. The potent poison quite overcrows my spirit. I cannot live to hear the news from England, but I do prophesy the election lights on Fortinbras. He has my dying voice, so tell him with the occurrence more and less which have solicited. The rest is silence. The rest is silence." The last words of Hamlet. Not a declaration, not a resolution, not the triumphant last speech of the hero who has achieved what he set out to achieve. The rest is silence, the quiet acknowledgement of what comes after words, after thought, after the examination and the examination of the examination, after everything that Hamlet is and has been and tried to be. The rest is silence, and Horatio says, "Now cracks a noble heart. Good night, sweet prince, and flights of angels sing thee to thy rest. Good night, sweet prince," the most beautiful farewell in all of literature. The friend who was there from the beginning, the one person Hamlet trusted, the one person who was not performing, not reporting back, not a servant of the court. Horatio, who outlives everyone, who will tell the story, as Hamlet asked, "Flights of angels sing thee to thy rest." The rest that Hamlet, who never rested, who never stopped thinking, who never found the peace of the person who has acted rightly at the right moment, now finds. Shakespeare writes, "Where is this sight? What is it you would see? If aught of woe or wonder, cease your search. This quarry cries on havoc. O proud death, what feast is toward in thine eternal cell, that you so many princes at a shot, so bloodily hast struck? The sight is dismal, and our affairs from England come too late. The ears are senseless that should give us hearing, to tell him his commandment is fulfilled, that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. Where should we have our thanks? Not from his mouth had it the ability of life to thank you. He never gave commandment for their death. But since so jump upon this bloody question, you from the Polack wars, and you from England, are here arrived. Give order that these bodies, high on a stage, be placed to the view, and let me speak to the yet unknowing world how these things came about. So shall you hear of carnal, bloody, and unnatural acts, of accidental judgments, casual slaughters, of deaths put on by cunning and forced cause, and in this upshot, purposes mistook fall on the inventors' heads. Purposes mistook fall on the inventors' heads. Horatio's summary of the entire play. Purposes mistook, the intentions that failed, the plans that turned against their planners, the revenge that destroyed the revenger, the poison that poisoned the poisoner, the trap that caught the trapper. Everyone undone by what they set in motion. And Fortinbras, who has been at the edges, who was mentioned in the first scene, whose army crossed the stage, whose energy Hamlet admired from a distance as the emblem of decisive action he could not match, arrives and claims Denmark. He says, "For me, with sorrow I embrace my fortune. I have some rights of memory in this kingdom, which now to claim my vantage doth invite me. Let 4 captains bear Hamlet like a soldier to the stage, for he was likely, had he been put on, to have proved most royal. And for his passage, the soldier's music and the rite of war speak loudly for him. Take up the bodies. Such a sight as this becomes the field, but here shows much amiss. Go bid the soldiers shoot. Had he been put on to have proved most royal, if he had been given the chance, if circumstances had been different, if the world had not been what it was, most royal, and soldiers carry Hamlet out, with the music of war, with the honor of the soldier he never was, the man of action he could not be, and the guns fire, for the Prince of Denmark, who thought too much and loved too deeply, and knew too clearly what the world was, and could not, for most of 5 acts, do what he knew he should, and did it in the end, when there was nothing else left. That is the end. Act 4, Act 5, Part 2, complete. Hamlet, by William Shakespeare, complete. And what has happened here? A man was asked to do one thing: remember me and avenge my murder. And he spent the entire play unable to do it. Not from cowardice, from the fullness of his intelligence, from the recognition that action has consequences, that consequences cannot be controlled, that the world is more complicated than the ghost's simple demand. And while he examined, and while he delayed, and while he staged plays and spoke to skulls, and considered whether the timing of Claudius's prayer was spiritually optimal for his revenge, while he did all of this, Ophelia lost her mind and drowned singing. Polonius was killed by mistake behind a tapestry. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were killed in England by Hamlet's own hand. Gertrude was poisoned by her husband by accident, drinking from the cup he prepared for her son. Laertes was poisoned by the sword he himself poisoned in the scuffle that his revenge produced. Claudius was finally killed by the weapon he prepared for Hamlet, and the poison he brewed for Hamlet forced into his own mouth. And Hamlet was poisoned by the weapon Laertes carried, by the plot Claudius made. Everyone died, not because Hamlet acted, because he acted too late, and too slowly, and in the wrong order, and on the wrong targets. And because the delay created the conditions for the catastrophe that the earlier action might have prevented or might not. This is the play's final honesty. We cannot know what would have happened if Hamlet had acted in Act 1, if he had killed Claudius immediately, if he had trusted the ghost without testing, if he had not thought too precisely on the event. Perhaps it would have been better. Perhaps it would have been worse. Perhaps the catastrophe was always coming. Perhaps the corruption was too deep, too old, too embedded in the stones of Elsinore to be cured by any single decisive action. We cannot know, and this is the play's gift and its burden. It does not tell us whether Hamlet was right to delay or wrong. It shows us what delay costs and lets us decide for ourselves. What is the price of thinking too much? What is the price of not thinking enough? Laertes charged in immediately for his father and was used by Claudius and killed. Hamlet examined and was used by circumstance and killed. Different paths, same ending. In Denmark, where something was rotten, and the rot spread to everything. Eventually, the rest is silence. This is the classic mind, and you are listening to Jamil. And here Hamlet, by William Shakespeare, is complete.